Hey everybody, it's your boy Dirt Bike Bogey. You already know what it is. Today was a real interesting day. When I got my bike at the tow yard, after the front tire popped on the bridge, I'm okay. I'm healing pretty good from the spill. It's not much, nothing broken. But importance was my bike was sitting in the rain in uh in the tow yard, and I guess the oil must have mixed with water. So my filter kept over flooding. I cleaned the filter. I did all that. I'm gonna upload that video of me cleaning the filter very soon. And I ran into a pack, and we were riding, and my bike just had to be the one to crap out. And I was dealing with I had the Orion RXB 250L. They all had Honda 250Ls and Groms and shit. And I had to turn around and go home. And I was pretty pissed off because everything was smoking. It was able to get home, but I had oil mixed with water. So if anybody knows, changing your oil on the Orion RXB, there's not a screw underneath. So I put it on the platform looking for a screw underneath, and it wound up being the two panels on the side, like the two on the side where it says Orion. If you unscrew them and tilt the bike over, everything spills out. But when it spilled out, it was like just spilling out water. It was a disaster. So after I did that, and I adjusted the back tire and tightened the chain, I was able to pick up and wheelie again. So I'm not complaining, but it just sucks to be like the only one with a Chinese bike, while everyone I ran into that was riding has something from Japan, and I look like a clown because of that. But yeah, they all met up somewhere else, and unfortunately, I couldn't. I had to turn around and go home for those reasons. But yeah, if you're ever wondering, I guess I'm gonna change my oil by unscrewing the two panels on the left side of the engine and where the clutch is, and where the gearbox, and unscrewing that and turning it over. I felt as though it poured out everything. And once I put fresh oil in it, screwed everything back, I didn't have the leaks that were noticeably before. So if you're watching this, there is no screw underneath of your bike in order for you to drain the oil into a pan. It has to be turned on its side. It sucks. I don't know if anyone knows if I'm doing it incorrect, if there is a screw underneath, but I checked underneath. I did not see it. So I had to unscrew the two from the side and tilt the bike over all the way. And it worked for me, and I know it'll work for you. But yeah. So I had those kinds of issues, and then I had to tweak the clutch lever, and I had to play with the throttle cable again and the idle in order for it to really be able to lift off. So now that all that's fixed, I just need a front brake lever, and I'm able to do wheelie tutorials. I'm going to practice for like a week, and then at the end of the week, just look for my wheelie tutorial, because a lot of people have questions about this particular bike, and it's very, very hard to get off the ground because it's kind of heavy, and adjusting your how do I put this? Adjusting the pin in the carburetor. The pin that originally comes with the bike doesn't have any other settings. It's only set on one. So it's like, it's ass. So changing your pin in the carburetor that you currently have, or jumping from a 28 to a 30 millimeter and then changing the pin, would do you some justice in order for you to pop the clutch and give it a rev. And when you give it a rev and you tap the brake, at the same time that you tap the brake, if you release the clutch and you give it throttle, you should get enough lift in order to start your wheelie. And then from there, it's all about your settings and how the bike feels in order for you to actually follow through with it. So now that I'm pretty good at following through with it, unlike my KX 100 2-stroke, I would have to switch to third gear. I feel as though I'm comfortable enough to where I can continue wheelie if I get it high enough and the RPMs become lower in order to coast in just second without even switching. But definitely want to learn how to switch on the bike. It's not it's easier said than done. But those are some issues that I wound up with because of my accident. There was a lot of work to do on the bike, but you know, the draining the oil thing is on the side. And once I adjusted everything, and I changed the spark plug because it was sitting, everything returned to normal. So I'm gonna play around with it for another week or so. I might get a new cable that actually holds my spark plug in place, and because I've noticed that the wires were kind of frayed, so I plan on getting a new one of them, and that might restore even more power for the bike. But yeah, and my shocks were very, very stiff. So because they were so stiff of slamming down all the time, I believe that it was my own fault of why the tire popped. But yeah, so now my front shocks have a little bounce to it. It's a little scary with the front shocks having some bounce, so I've been tuning it a little tighter just to have like a little looseness, so when I drop it down, it's not full force slamming down in order to pop my tire. But I'm no longer a highway rider because of that. Like you know, a lot of people would still ride highway, but I think I'm done with that. I think I'm just gonna go locally with my 250L. But me adjusting the actual front shocks and you know, having a little bounce as opposed to none at all, because I had none at all. And I think the factors between that and my loose clutch enough for it to like snap as soon as I hit the throttle and I RPM and rev it high. As soon as I tap the brake and let go of the clutch in second gear with a new pin on the caliber, you know, with a new pin in inside my carburetor, was enough to give more gas and to make my bike somewhat not too rich and not too lean. It kind of is in the middle because it's idling nice and neat. And so yeah, it worked for me. And just stay tuned with the other videos and you can see for yourself. But yeah, the Nibby carb had the pin where I was able to change the settings, so I threw it in the other carb that came with the bike. And then I bought another carb, which was a 34 millimeter, which is really what's supposed to be on the 250. So I can only imagine. I believe that when I install this other carburetor I bought, that I'm able to pop the clutch and actually wheelie off of third, which hasn't been done with the 28 millimeter or the 30 so far. But switching from a 20 to a 30 and then to a 34 with a pin that's able to change the settings, I believe like I would get a lot more out of the bike than usual. And I've been topping out at like 71, 72, but I'm thinking once I put the new carb in, my theory is that I will actually make it close to 78, 80. I've been around a couple Honda 250Ls today, and I'm like, hey, what do you usually top out at? And they're telling me that they usually top out at 85 miles an hour, and I'm like, wow, I only been reached 72 to 75. I've never been able to go higher. So their bikes that are $10,000 in fifth gear actually go 10 miles an hour higher than mine's. But it doesn't get me discouraged because I feel as though I'm running the wrong carburetor. And once I switch to the 34 millimeter from a 30, and with my pin settings at 4 out of 5, I should be able to at least get 5 or 6 miles. I might not get the 85 that they're doing, but I can come close to it. And you know, a lot of people shun the Chinese bikes and that they're crap. But if I upgrade a few different parts and things like that, like this bike doesn't have a filter and it doesn't have no coolant. It's all air cooled on the engine. So, but I kind of like it that way because it's less stress and things that you have to worry about, because you don't have to put no coolant in, and your bike doesn't overheat because it's just air cooled. It's just tubes that actually send air to it to keep it cool. So I feel as though that's pretty cool that it keeps it cool that way. So you know, I come from the 2-stroke and to switch to a 4, it's more comfortable